Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Video Clips, which is brought to you by Wellness Forum Health and the Wellness Forum Institute. I have two great news items to share with you today. One is a question from a subscriber, and the other deals with high-fat eating and the consequences of it. First of all, I'll just start by telling you about two new workshops this week. One is tonight, and it's free. Thrive in 25, Your Best Health Ever. 10 things that you need to do in order to enjoy optimal health in 2025. Actually, 11. I'm an overachiever. I always do more than I'm supposed to, so it will turn out to be 11 things that you should do. A couple will surprise you. Lots of time for Q&A. It's 7:30 p.m. Eastern tonight, and we'll film it in case you can't join us live. The second workshop this week is called In One End and Out the Other. It's a tour of your marvelous digestive tract and how it works. The topics will include your microbiome and how to maintain it, colon health and disease, constipation and diarrhea, diverticular disease, leaky gut, gallbladder disease, GERD, the truth about H. pylori, digestive enzymes, and more. Lots of time for questions. It's a morning and afternoon session to give us a lot of time to cover the material. All right. Last thing on the announcements, and then we'll get to news, is the next Winner's Circle starts January 13th. That's next week. This is a life-changing program for people who are ready to get serious and hold themselves accountable for their own outcomes. And if you want to do that, but you know that you don't have a system, or you start and stop and you've succeeded a bit and fallen back, this is a program for you. It's based on one that I have been involved in for the last over 1 year, about 15 months now, that's changed my life incredibly. Never had any problem with the diet and lifestyle stuff, by the way, but other challenges in my life that I've dealt with successfully, and I'm going to teach you how to apply those to your diet and lifestyle habits and other things in your life as well. So news or information about any of this stuff, just send me an email at pampopper@msn.com and we can forward information to you. All right, so the first news item, as I mentioned, is an email from a subscriber who writes, Pam, what do you think about the suggestion from the Surgeon General that warning labels should be put on alcohol saying it increases the risk of cancer? Well, my answer is I disagree with this, and not because I think people should drink alcohol with careless abandon. In the evidence-based world of health, the one we live in, alcohol can be a problem or not, depending on how you consume it. Context matters here. For example, a normal weight, physically active adult eating a plant-based diet based on our pyramid who enjoys a glass of wine or a gin and tonic 10 or 12 times a year, not likely to be a problem. On the other hand, an overweight person who's sedentary, eats a high-fat diet, we'll get to that later, that includes dairy and animal foods every day and has cocktails every Friday and Saturday night when dining out with friends, yeah, not so good. But the reason is the context in which the alcohol is being consumed, which is poor health and poor diet. Adding alcohol is just pouring fuel on the fire, but eliminating it isn't going to make a whole lot of difference either if the rest of the bad habits continue. And that's one of the reasons why people don't succeed at diet and lifestyle change. They manipulate a factor at a time and they don't really get the whole combination of things right. Context matters, as I mentioned. Broccoli and other vegetables in the same group, cruciferous vegetables, they're good for you. But if you don't eat them or rarely eat them, they won't help you much at all. Animal foods twice a day can significantly increase your risk of cancer and heart disease and many other conditions you don't want to have. But eating a small serving of organic animal food or wild-caught fish twice a week while eating a plant-centered diet, being physically active, well-rested, and hydrated, not likely to harm you either. This is one of the major limitations of so much of the discussion about food and health right now. The conversation tends to revolve around the food that's going to improve your health or the food or beverage that's bad for you. Nothing by itself is going to determine your health outcomes. They're determined by the totality of your health status and your behaviors as practiced over a long period of time. So I'm not pro or against anything really. It's the context in which it happens that matters, and that's a nuanced discussion that doesn't lend itself to sound bites. And unfortunately, health information is digested in sound bites right now. All right, quick announcement for health professionals. Actually, the first part of this could be for consumers as well. We offer the Diet and Lifestyle Intervention course twice a year. It starts in a couple weeks, January 22nd. It's a 15-module overview course, and for health professionals, you have a final project at the end. For those of you who just audit it, it's just interesting. We cover Alzheimer's disease and cognitive health and men's health, women's health, children's health, cancer, autoimmune disease, a whole gamut of vaccinations, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, etc. So anyway, starts January 22nd. Happy to send you the course catalog if you email me. And then for health professionals, this really is for health professionals or people who want to be, we're taking partners on now when we allow those partners to use our resources, the libraries and products and programs and the back office staff, all the things that make me able to be successful at the work that I do is available to you as an affiliate of us. So if you want to talk about this, send me an email, we'll set up a time. All right, let's go on to news item number 2. I receive emails, particularly a lot lately because it's been in the news, from people who ask me about this new fascination with high-fat diets. And people write, about ketogenic, carnivore diets, etc. Gosh, am I missing something? Or, Pam, have you changed your mind about this kind of stuff with all this new information coming out? So let's start with the fascination isn't new. These types of diets have been popular under different names for decades. I mean, paleo was in fashion for a long time, but now they just call it carnivore. Some of you might be old enough to remember the Atkins diet, which was a super high-fat diet. It never was a good idea, but it really fell out of favor when it was disclosed that Atkins died of heart disease. In other words, the diet he promoted ended up killing him. A good friend of mine, by the way, obtained a copy of the death certificate and confirmed this. There were a lot of people claiming that he died from an accident. He didn't. He died from heart disease. The South Beach diet took over. Now you don't hear about that so much anymore, so now it's keto. Now a keto diet, again, back to that context issue that I was talking about before. A keto diet can be a really good idea for very specific types of situations. And a couple of examples would be, for example, epileptic toddlers who have dozens of seizures per day, or a patient with untreatable brain cancer. Most people don't qualify, and most people aren't even eating a keto diet. They're just eating a lot of fat. It's sort of like Atkins revisited, and we saw what happened to the promoter of that diet. The problems with eating too much fat are not hard to understand, particularly the first part, which is that fat is so calorie dense. Like 1 tablespoon of oil has 14 grams of fat. A cup of avocado has 21 grams of fat. So eating too much fat is a major contributing factor to people being overweight or obese. A calorie-dense diet is very difficult to maintain unless you just have a super high metabolism, but there are other problems with it, even if you can maintain normal weight. Eating a high-fat diet depresses immune function. Francisco Siracusa is an immunologist at a German university who's been studying the impact of diet on immune function for a long time. He and his research team fed mice diets higher in fat and cholesterol and lower in fiber for 3 days. They called it the feast diet. And then they switched them to a regular rodent diet for 3 days, and then they alternated for a period of 12 days total. Immune function decreased when the mice ate the high-fat diet and improved when they were cycled back to the normal diet for rodents. In addition to negative changes in genetic expression with the feast diet, the mice had reduced numbers of T helper 17 cells, which are involved in protecting against infection, regulating mucosal defense, and recruiting neutrophils to clear pathogens. Syracuse has stated, quote, "We were, to be honest, a bit surprised at first to see that within this very short period of time, adaptive immune cells reacted." Well, to explore it further, the team infected mice with a pathogenic strain of Salmonella and then compared immune responses of mice eating normally but who had lower levels of interleukin-17 to wild-type mice eating both regular and feast diets. Both the feast-fed mice and the IL-17 deficient mice lost weight and had more bacteria in their intestines than the mice eating the normal diet. Syracuse and team also looked at the impact of limited fiber intake as part of the feast diet for mice, and they discovered that mice eating the feast diet had lower levels of acetate and butyrate in their intestines, both of which have an anti-inflammatory effect. This then led to decreased production of cytokines, which also control inflammation in the body. And as I'm sure you know, inflammation in the body is related to all kinds of diseases and conditions that you don't want to have. Now, these are animal studies, but human studies also show that dietary fat is not so good for immune function. Saturated fat can have a particularly deleterious effect on immune function through increasing inflammation levels in the gut. This can lead to leaky gut, which leads to further inflammation as foreign substances enter the bloodstream. Toll-like receptors, or TLRs, are some of the first-line weapons of the immune system against infection. Studies in humans show downregulation of TLRs within hours of ingesting a single bolus of saturated fat. Polyunsaturated fats have the same effect on TLRs. So this idea that there's a better fat, high-fat diet to eat, not so much. Saturated fat also increases expression of the COX-2 enzyme, which increases inflammation. Both saturated and unsaturated fatty acids have been shown to increase inflammation through increases in pro-inflammatory cytokines. Additionally, coming back to something I said earlier, higher fat intake increases the risk of obesity, which in and of itself reduces immune function. So lower fat, plant-based eating, and achieving optimal weight and body composition are good ideas for people who want optimal health and want to live for a long time in a healthy state. I'm 68 years old, and I do not want to end up spending any time, none, zero, in a nursing home. I would like to live in my own home right here with all of my familiar surroundings independently for the duration of my life, and that doesn't happen with a high-fat, unhealthy diet or with an obese body. The current high-fat craze is promoted by consumers who want to hear good news about their bad habits and health professionals who are completely unmoored from critical thinking and research. You know, at Wellness Forum Health, we promote critical thinking by teaching consumers how to read and understand the medical literature better than their doctors, and teaching health professionals not to get taken in by this type of nonsense as well. One last quick announcement. Some of you know my story. I healed a very injured body from a car accident through yoga. And now I teach the type of yoga that restored my body virtually. I do this twice a year. And the first one this year the first virtual series starts January 19th. There are 4 virtual classes and a private lesson and access to a platform where you have instructional videos and also an auditory dialogue so you can practice at home when the series is over on your own. If you want information about that, send me an email. All right, that is it for today. As usual, pass this on to anybody who you think would enjoy watching it, and I will be back to you on Thursday with more news. Thank you for watching.